Rasputin, the untold truth of the mad monk who refused to die. He's a figure half legend, half scandal, a Siberian peasant turned court mystic, accused of sorcery and influence, and remembered in the popular imagination as invincible. The story of Grigory Rasputin reads like a thriller, healing scandal, political interference, and a night of murder that has haunted historians for a century. In this video we'll separate reliable facts from rumor, explain how Rasputin rose to power, what he actually did inside the Romanov court, why he provoked such hatred, and how his death became a symbol for the crumbling Russian monarchy. Early life and background. Grigory Rasputin was born in a Siberian village in the mid-1860s. Sources describe him as an illiterate peasant who underwent a spiritual conversion in his 20s. He traveled, associated with various sects, and developed a reputation among some for charismatic religious insight and unusual behavior. By the early 1900s, he had made his way to St. Petersburg and began to attract attention for claimed healing and prayer. How he entered the court. Rasputin's access to the imperial family came through a single, devastating problem. The Tsarevich Alexei suffered from a severe bleeding disorder, hemophilia. According to court memoirs and physician notes, Alexei's episodes were frightening and life-threatening. Rasputin allegedly had a calming presence. In at least a number of documented incidents, the boy's condition improved after Rasputin's interventions, or simply when the family believed his presence helped. Whether Rasputin's visits actually cured the condition or provided psychological comfort, the result was the same. Tsarina Alexandra came to regard him as indispensable. That perception granted him extraordinary informal influence. What he did with influence once close to the imperial family. Rasputin used influence in several ways. He counseled on personnel, recommended appointments, and interceded on behalf of favors. That kind of access and perceived favoritism angered many nobles and politicians who saw him as an unelected, unaccountable figure shaping state decisions. Importantly, Rasputin was not a formal minister with an office and a portfolio. His power was personal and informal. That informality made him easier to attack politically. He became a lightning rod for grievances that might otherwise have been directed at the monarchy itself. Scandal, rumor, and media. Scandal fueled his notoriety. Newspapers and pamphlets magnified rumors about his private life, alleging drunkenness, sexual impropriety, or occult practices. Whether all these claims were true is difficult to say. They were amplified by political enemies and a court culture that loved scandal. In an era before modern fact-checking, sensationalist stories spread rapidly and helped shape public opinion. Rasputin's presence at court became a convenient symbol for critics of the Tsar and Tsarina. If the royal family permitted this man to have power, the argument went, the entire government must be corrupt and decaying. The assassination accounts and doubts. Rasputin's death in late 1916 reads like a Moyer script. A group of conspirators or aristocrats who feared his influence lured him to a palace under the pretense of dinner. Contemporary accounts and memoirs claim they first poisoned cakes and wine laced with cyanide, which purportedly failed to kill him. They then shot him multiple times and later threw his body into the Neva River. When his body was found, an autopsy reportedly noted water in the lungs, suggesting he was still alive when submerged. These dramatic details are widely reported, but historians caution that many accounts come from participants with motives to sensationalize or obfuscate. Some forensic details remain disputed in modern scholarship. The safest conclusion is that a group of nobles intended to silence him, and that the murder has become as mythic as the man. Why Rasputin mattered politically. Rasputin mattered less for his direct political decisions and more as a symptom. He became a symbol of the monarchy's isolation and its failure to manage public perception. While ministers came and went, Rasputin's presence suggested that power was informal and capricious. That perception weakened legitimacy. In a fragile state, legitimacy is as important as armies. Once people believed their rulers were controlled by superstition and favorite mystics, faith in institutions cracked further. Myth-making and revolution. After his death, Rasputin's story grew. Pamphlets, rumors, and political opponents used the tale to demonstrate royal incompetence. The revolution that followed in 1917 had many causes: economic strain, war exhaustion, land hunger, yet Rasputin's death features in the narrative as a dramatic emblem of a rotten court. The monarchy's image had been thoroughly compromised. Rasputin was one of the sparks that helped ignite public outrage. Lessons on power and myth. Rasputin teaches us about the fragility of reputation and the speed at which rumor can reshape politics. Influence that lacks transparent accountability becomes a political liability. And once a story takes on momentum, especially one that fits into a broader narrative of failure, the story feeds the politics. That is the modern lesson in any system. Perceived corruption or irrationality can delegitimize leaders faster than any formal indictment. What we can't know for sure. It's important to differentiate the provable from the detractive. We know Rasputin had influence. We know he was murdered. We know the monarchy was weak. Beyond that, personal salacious details are often contested. Historians work by weighing sources, comparing memoirs, official records, and contemporary press. For Rasputin, the press often favored the sensational. Treat the gossip with skepticism, but do not ignore the political reality that grew from it. Rasputin's tale is part horror story, part political lesson. It is a sharp example of how personal power, rumor, and public opinion interact, and of how a single figure can come to represent larger institutional failure. If you enjoyed this careful dismantling of myth and history, subscribe to Hidden Histories. Next time we'll look at another fallen court and see how similar patterns repeat in very different times and places.